Exodus chapter 14. From Etham to the Sea of Reeds. Yahweh spoke to Moses and said, Tell the Israelites to turn back and pitch camp in front of Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, facing Baal-zephon. You must pitch your camp opposite this place, beside the sea, and then Pharaoh will think, The Israelites are wandering to and fro in countryside. The desert has closed in on them. I shall then make Pharaoh stubborn, and he will set out in pursuit of them. And I shall win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and his whole army. And then the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh, and Israelites did this. The Egyptians pursued the Israelites. When Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was told that the people had fled, he and his officials changed their attitude towards the people. What have we done, they said, allowing Israel to leave our service? So Pharaoh had his chariot harnessed and set out with his troops, taking 600 of the best chariots and all the other chariots in Egypt, with officers in each. Yahweh made Pharaoh king of Egypt stubborn, and he gave chase to the Israelites. The Israelites marched confidently away, but the Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, his horsemen, and his army, gave chase and caught up with them, where they lay encamped beside the sea near Pi-hahiroth, facing Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians in pursuit of them. The Israelites were terrified and cried out to Yahweh for help. To Moses they said, Was it for lack of graves in Egypt that you have led us out to die in the desert? What was the point of bringing us out of Egypt? Did we not tell you as much in Egypt? Leave us alone, we said. We would rather work for Egyptians. We prefer to work for Egyptians than to die in the desert. Moses said to the people, Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see what Yahweh will do to rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never see again. Yahweh will do the fighting for you. All you need to do is to keep calm. The miracle of the sea. Yahweh then said to Moses, Why crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to march on. Your part is to raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, so that the Israelites can walk through the sea on dry ground. While I, for my part, shall make the Egyptians so stubborn that they will follow them, and I shall win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, chariots and horsemen. And when I have won glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and his chariots and horsemen, the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh. Then the angel of God, who preceded the army of Israel, changed station and followed behind them. The pillar of cloud moved from their back and took position behind them. It came between the army of the Egyptians and the army of Israel. The cloud was dark, and the night passed without the one drawing any closer to the other the whole night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh drove the sea back with a strong easterly wind all night and made the sea into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went on dry ground right through the sea, with walls of water right to right and left of them. The Egyptians gave chase, and all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea after them. In the morning watch, Yahweh looked down on the army of the Egyptians from the pillar of fire and cloud, and threw the Egyptian army into confusion. He so clogged their chariot wheels that they drove on only with difficulty, which made the Egyptians say, Let us flee from Israel, for Yahweh is fighting on their side against Egyptians. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch out your hand over the sea and let the waters flow back on the Egyptians and on their chariots and their horsemen. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and as they broke, the sea returned to its bed. The fleeing Egyptians ran straight into it, and Yahweh overthrew the Egyptians in the middle of the sea. The returning waters washed right over the chariots and horsemen of Pharaoh's entire army, which had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not a single one of them was left. The Israelites, however, had marched through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water to right and left of them. That day Yahweh rescued Israel from the clutches of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the mighty deed that Yahweh had performed against the Egyptians, the people revered Yahweh and put their faith in Yahweh and in Moses, his servant.